Season's greetings, four peeps, and welcome to episode 136. And winter is almost officially here, but much of the country is rushing to prepare for what could be the first real snowfall of the season. And considering how mild and snow-free the last few winters have been, we're due.
The four P's. Professional. Political. Practical. Personal.
Something personal. As the COVID-19 vaccine deployment began this week in the United States and even around the world, it's now a race against time to get as many doses, as well as just the other key equipment, right? Syringes, all those things, just getting them produced as well as deployed and then prioritized. I'm excited for my wife, a healthcare worker, to get it. She's high up on that list, right? We're actually so passionate about sharing the importance of getting the vaccine with everyone that we recorded a home movie video in her office last week and posted it on YouTube, partially inspired by Dolly Parton's financial contributions to the development of the vaccine. I think she gave somewhere north of $1 million to help make it happen. This video, which we'll post a link to here in the comments on YouTube if you're watching this, or you can find it on the YouTube channel if you're listening to it, it may not have been as much about our family this time as some of the previous quarantine videos that we make, but check it out and let us know what you think. And if you're interested in getting the vaccine, I strongly encourage you to look into the science of it and not just question or even fall for some of the stupidity of some of the anti-vaxxers or just some of the ignorant people out there. Ask anybody in the science, medical professions, and they will tell you that this is an absolute no-brainer. And something professional. Well, stop me if you've heard this before, but brand purpose is important. If you've worked in, any industry for the past 5 years, you'd know that it's all about finding and defining and personifying a purpose. Just what that means may vary company to company, but when businesses have a higher purpose in mind, they also have the potential to not only maximize profit, but also do good in the world. Where we see so many companies or teams falling short is in leadership, right? For businesses to achieve both purpose and profitability, they need a good leader who also happens to be a good person, right? It's someone who's willing to step up to a high level of social responsibility. Now, purpose and profit are not mutually exclusive. If you talk to business leaders, you'll often find that they're in it for the purpose of the business, the meaning of it, and then the meaning that it brings to their lives, as well as the value it brings to their customers. Now, conscious capitalism, which was brought out in a book a couple years ago by John Mackey, he talks about how conscious capitalism shows that profit-making activities have the potential of realizing and elevating a higher purpose. And when leaders recognize this, the economic and social benefits of the business expand, often exponentially. A purpose is not a set it and forget it task, but it's a lifelong practice. It's something that we as managers and leaders have to discover and rediscover throughout our professional journeys. But as we watch hearings with tech CEOs before Congress and read stories about toxic workplaces and harassment and a lack of diversity hiring and leadership, the biggest inconsistency with leadership isn't any hard skill or something that can be trained or taught. It's integrity. Leaders must hold true to being good in order to be great, right? They need to ask questions like, what can we do to be a more responsible company? Or how can we take care of workers while also ensuring that they also act good and do good? How can we improve our social and environmental footprint? Brian Weiner, who was my CEO at 360i and is now the current CEO of Profitero, he used to say that in order to be a leader, you have to have thoughts that lead. And I think about this idea every day. It's also been more than that, though, for me in the last few years. Leadership is also about having the integrity to create a conscious culture, about creating an environment of safety and trust and even enjoyment, right? As well as the hard work. As leaders, it's our job to keep our teams thriving if we want our companies on the road to success. Having integrity is also about practicing the following qualities, right? It's honesty, it is honor, it is consistency, it's authenticity, it's just being trustworthy. In business, this becomes a win-win situation, and it's a solution for a lot of our challenges, where you create a positive outcome for yourself and the people around us, those above us, those who work for us, and even those who are on the other side of the table from us. It's good business. Something practical. And you'll hear some noise in the background. Our children's elementary school had to shut down this week for the first time since the school year started. Comes as the result of about 20% or so of the faculty having to quarantine. Nothing to do with in-school spread or student-to-student transmission, right? It was only a handful of students that have even tested positive all year. There were no instances of even child-to-teacher transmission. So, well, I'm not about to criticize the teachers here, so let's just move on. But with our kids home again, virtual, remote learning, it's back on. And this time around, I'm prepared. Even with 3 of us on heavy bandwidth video usage, right? Phone calls, Zoom, Slack video, and Hangouts all day now. The good news is that I'm not worried about our internet connection or speed at all. For those of you who feel like you've gotten as much as you possibly can out of your Wi-Fi router setup, right? As much as you possibly could have, and you're still struggling, I encourage you to look into Eero, E-E-R-O. It's your solution. And since purchasing our Eero kit earlier this summer, the connection speed in our house has gone up, 3 or 4 times in terms of upload-download speed. It is crazy. So how does it work? It uses something called true mesh technology, though I have no idea what that actually means, but mesh routers are now a thing. They use multiple range extending units called beacons to spread a speedy signal to all corners of your home, even beyond into your yard. Right? They plug in right into the outlet to a wall, and you can spread them out so that it covers different floors. It goes just again throughout your house and yard. The system then steers users from band to band and beacon to beacon as you move throughout the home, and it balances it out. Eero is about 3 years old, and it was just acquired by Amazon. The app, it actually has the app is incredible. It's like a home command center for all of your digital control center needs. It allows us to limit access or even pause entirely on a device-by-device basis. So if your kid's being a little shit, just turn off their iPad. Now, we set ours up in a matter of minutes, super easy. And considering we have about now, 30 connected devices in our home, from laptops to tablets to even Nest cameras in the front and back, it's probably the single best purchase I made in all of 2020. And something political. 2020 is going to be remembered as a year of many things, but one of the highlights for me will be recalling this as the year that Black women helped to save our democracy. While in no way minimizing the battles that African Americans continue to face on a daily basis, as evidenced by the senseless violence and killings of Breonna Taylor and Casey Goodson and George Floyd, and too many more this year, we also see that the seeds of change and social progress are taking root in the results of our 2020 presidential election. A country that was built by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution for privileged white men saw Black women turn out to vote in record numbers. From the beginning of our country, from our foundation, African Americans and women have challenged the exclusionary society that was created, first organizing to abolish slavery, then working to end the disenfranchisement of all women, and continuing to push for equality under the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Yet Black women have historically found it harder to rise through the ranks of these movements than did their white counterparts or even the Black male counterparts. White women played an important role in the abolition and disenfranchisement movement, as did prominent black men. Yet, despite their immense contributions, black women were excluded from leadership in these anti-slavery movements, right? The first American Civil War brought radical change, but black Americans were still denied equality as soon as Reconstruction set in. Slavery had been abolished, but Jim Crow legalized discrimination against black men and women all over the country, right? The women's suffrage movement was also led by white women, and even many black organizations also opposed voting rights for black women. They may have had the same rights on paper, but the reality is they were still widely prohibited from voting, even through the first half of the 20th century. Martha Jones' incredible book called Vanguard, it shares the stories of dozens, really, of black women who charted their own path to equality over the past 200 years. Women like Maria Miller Stewart and Jarena Mitchell, Sarah Mapps Douglas, and Sojourner Truth, right? They don't have the same level of name recognition as a Frederick Douglass or even John Brown or William Lloyd Garrison, but their struggles against racism and sexism are nothing short of heroic. Only with the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 did things really begin to change, and black women have emerged as a truly powerful voting bloc ever since. Throughout the early stages of the 2020 Democratic primary, when disarray and division threatened the process, black women rallied to support and get behind Joe Biden and put forth a candidate that could defeat Donald Trump. And then Georgia's turned blue in the general election, right? It's the first time it happened in decades. And it's truly the story of black female leaders like Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, Stacey Abrams, LaTosha Brown, and others, right? But it's the story of them rallying voter registration drives and mail-in ballot turnouts and even election day turnout in person. They deserve so much credit for delivering the state to President-elect Joe Biden and his running mate, the first black female vice president in American history, Kamala Harris. One more time, we need this powerful group of voters in Georgia to turn out for the double Senate election next month. Their efforts remain critical to the Democrats' chances of gaining back control of the U.S. Senate on January 5th. And while the polls indicate that Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff face maybe an uphill battle to pull off the sweep, you'd be out of your mind to count out the will and impact of an impassioned Georgia electorate led by the likes of Abrams, Mayor Bottoms, Brown, and all their supporters. So all eyes turn to you, Georgia.